Hello, my name is Trent Adams, and I'm here to do my Educational Thinker project for Education 504. The individual that I chose was Thomas Jefferson, who was born in 1743 in Virginia, died in 1826. When Thomas Jefferson was 9 years old, he began his formal training, formal schooling in a boarding school. From there, at age 16, he went to the college at William and Mary and began to study subjects such as science, math, rhetoric, and philosophy. And moving forward, Thomas Jefferson decided to pursue a career as a lawyer and eventually was awarded his lawyership through the State Bar in Virginia in 1767. Thomas Jefferson was very heavily interested in education reform. Reason being is in the state of Virginia at that time, there was no access to public education. The only education that existed at that time was private, and it was mainly geared for individuals that were wealthy, the aristocratic that could afford that education, but had no kind of public education for the common man. The state had not established any kind of public education system. Most of the education that was coming into the state in the public form was from other states or countries. And Jefferson's philosophy for education was that education was important for the common man so that they could live their lives holistically. They could make proper decisions for their family, but more importantly, to be involved in some kind of way, some kind of capacity politically to hold the government accountable and prevent any kind of political tyranny. So education leading to a greater society was an impact and part of Jefferson's philosophy. His beliefs really aligned with John Dewey's pragmatic views when it comes to societal beliefs and teaching through education the appropriate behaviors. Another educational idea that Jefferson pioneered was the reform of religious curriculum. When he attended the college at William and Mary, he felt that curriculum was geared mainly towards religious studies, creating ministers, preachers. So Thomas Jefferson, through his religious reformation, as a part of that, introduced new subjects to the college at William and Mary, such as scientific and historic, to bring that college into more of a university platform and offer more subjects to be taught that were not necessarily religiously driven. Some of the educational impacts that Thomas Jefferson made: number one, he proposed a bill that would place the responsibility of education, public education, on the states. He created school districts throughout the state of Virginia. I believe it was 24. And those individual school districts were responsible for educating individuals within their parameters. And it was open to anybody, the common man, or I should say not anybody, but the citizen, the common man, of that individual district. And as we know now, our school systems in our present day are broken down into districts. Currently in the city that I live in, you could drive 10 or 15 miles and go through 4 or 5 different school districts that are responsible for educating the students in that community. There was opposition to Jefferson's public education reform, and that opposition was that it just simply cost too much money. Individuals such as the governor of Virginia and others that made up the governmental systems thought that it was just too much. So an impact that Jefferson had is he proposed a tax to support schools, which of course now we know that our schools are publicly funded through taxes. During his presidency, final impact, Jefferson actually appropriated federal lands for several states to establish universities and colleges. So he was a pioneer in lending those lands so that educational institutions could be established. A couple of criticisms about Thomas Jefferson's educational philosophy. One, philosophical scholars didn't really consider Thomas Jefferson a philosopher of education, more of a political reformer. A second and personal critique that I have is through Jefferson's educational system as a public school, there would be one individual selected to be accepted into a university curriculum from that group of individuals. And I simply just didn't think that that was enough to be able to create a real political educational reform for one individual to be selected and moved on to higher education. Also, another criticism was when Jefferson would say that he wanted education to be for the common man, it wasn't necessarily for every individual. You have to think about the contextual history. Jefferson was not referring to African Americans such as slaves or Native Americans or women. So for a society to be of greater good and better value, that educational system should be offered to all and not just all considered in the definition of that context. So yeah, that's Thomas Jefferson's educational philosophy. It was fun.